Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Gore column in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives after they put out big news. I think today qualifies as big news out of HPQ Silicon, trades in Canada under HPQ, for our friends in the US under HPQFF. For those new to the story, but you've seen the big headline and you've seen so far as of 11:30 or so, the big move in the stock price. HPQ is a Canadian producer of innovative silicon solutions. What that means is they're building a portfolio of unique, high-value specialty silicon products that are needed for the coming renewable energy revolution. More than just lip service, though, they're accomplishing this through two innovative reactors that essentially permit the one-stop transformation of quartz into high-purity silicon metal and specialty silicon products at significantly reduced costs, energy usage, and carbon footprint. And today, the big headline: dynamic test successful, major scaling up milestones reached, pilot plant ready to process material. Bernard, congratulations. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Nothing. Congratulations to the shareholders that were stuck with us during these last few months, because it's been hard to get here, but I'm so happy we're here. I always knew we would get here. Like, let's be very, very clear. I always knew we would get here. It's like until you're here, you're not here, and we are here.
And well, okay, so I'm going to ask that question now because we're going to talk about technology. But how happy? Just by the way you're laughing, how happy are you? How happy and great should the shareholders be feeling as a result of this milestone?
Through the moon. And I'll say this: I think it didn't dawn on me how stressed I was about this test. Until now, until I got the results. And it's really interesting how everything came out, because as you remember, when we did the Q&A, I was still struggling with a cold.
Yeah.
And I actually started my cold. I went to Pyro's plant. They were doing the startup and everything else. And I went home and I was going to come back the next day. And overnight, I started to have a cold, and it really hit me for the entire time. And I think it was really the stress, as weird as this may seem, the stress of this test, because inside of me, I knew this was the key test. All right. And if we passed this test with flying color, we were off to the races, and we did. Okay.
Wow.
Now, R&D and the size of the scaling up is so massive that to be able to hit it outside of the park the first time at bat is truly, it's really humbling. It's really, really humbling. And it didn't dawn on me that we've done this until I saw, because I was seeing the pictures. I saw a picture of the inside of the reactor after, it was still 80 degrees centigrade after 3 days of cooling down. So it's still pretty hot. And they said, oh yeah, that's a charcoal at the bottom. So, okay, that's interesting. Dawn, wait a minute. We put charcoal in a system. We had a plasma arc generating massive temperature. Shouldn't there be only basically ashes left? And it says, no, we were able to keep and then it dawned on me that this was the biggest, basically, innovation. Was one of them. We've tested it. It worked. I was like, oh.
Is it fair to say history was made?
Yep.
With this?
Yep.
Not just for the company, for the industry.
People have to realize that what we are doing. And I kept saying that sentence, it's a lifetime prototype, high temperature. What does that mean? It's no concept of, those are just words, okay? But in reality, high temperature, heavy industry process, very difficult to manage. That's what Pyrogenesis is a big specialty. But we decided to add an extra level of complexity to the technology, which is maintaining a vacuum and then being able to keep the reactor in an inert form, in its state during the entire time that we need to. So we had those big, very massive milestones to reach. And on the first test, we got them. So it was like humbling, like, oh.
Did you expect it to be on the first test? Or like you said in previous interviews, you expect
yes,
to go through a couple of iterations and tests until you got it right?
I always hope it would be on first test, but I didn't want to put my hopes. Well, that's probably why I called the call, because it was like the way it took us so long to get here, but we're here. Okay. It's like, I didn't want to have to wait another week, 2 weeks for them to tweak to figure out what was going on. I just didn't want to have to deal with this. And I don't have to. It's like it's done. It's like that's normal R&D, because if there was not that risk, everybody would be doing what we're doing. But you can't do that.
And how does it feel? This is the years of this is the culmination of years of effort to get to this point. It must have felt like almost like a Super Bowl moment for you. To realize after all that
I don't
work,
know.
effort behind
I never
the
won a
scenes.
Super Bowl, and I never been too much of an athlete. Never won too many of those things. It was just, I think it was more humbling to say, oh, all the pieces match together and work as we planned out to be. And then you realize, oh, I'm going to be very honest in a certain way. I think all of us were, and I'm saying, Pyrogenesis and us, we're all surprises. Oh, we've made this. We've actually changed. We're in the process of changing how silicone is being manufactured. Okay. There's a difference between saying you're going to do that, doing the engineering plan, and then having the last big test to do it. Okay. And you pass with all flying colors, it's.
How do you think the partners, and obviously it's early, but how do you think the partners and the industry are going to react to this milestone, given the importance of what you're saying?
They're probably going to wait till we do the next big milestone, which is making silicone. Okay. But for reason I'll explain a bit later. As weird as this may seem, I don't think I could be proven wrong. I can be proven wrong. I don't have an issue with that. I don't think it's as big of a milestone as what we've done.
This was the big jump. This was the major jump.
This was the big jump. We write it. It's a 2,500 times scaling up. Okay. To allow me to share your screen, just imagine this. Okay. The Gen 2 in the Gen 2 in a certain size was a size of about stackable dishwashers. Okay. That's the size of the Gen 3. Okay.
And even that's hard to visualize for a lot of people.
That's hard. Well, that's hard to visualize, but remember, you have a second level to the system. Yep. So it gives you an idea. And I'm 6'4" and probably to the second stairs, and my head would be above it. So you guys saw the image of the power supply. It was massive. That's why it has to be so massive and all those issues. So yeah.
And even though that's massive, Bernard, relative to what you started with, relative to what the industry, the traditional industry, has to deal with, this is the equivalent of going from those big, massive supercomputers to a powerful desktop computer, right? Yep. At the end of the day.
That's literally what it is. In reality, and this what this test was the big innovations, okay, that are behind the design of making silicone were tested and proven to work. That's a big milestone. And I think we were so focused on doing it, okay, literally so focused on doing it, that's only after we realized, holy moly, what have we accomplished technically?
And we've all seen that in movies, right? Where somebody aims for a big goal, but they can't believe they actually get there when they get there. And it's not that you didn't believe it, but you're still stunned by the fact that you got there. But that's what a great feeling for you, for the Pyrogenesis team, and for the shareholders, Bernard. That's fantastic. Yeah.
I'll share another image, sure, which is the one where it made me realize, oh man, just there to share. This is a bigger vision, I guess. So this is the reactor open. Remember, it's a 3-day after, still 80 degrees centigrade. That shows you how hot this is. And this is the plasma arc. We're talking 2,000 degrees Celsius.
Don't get anywhere near that unless you want to bury your body.
Don't get anything weird. So think about this. This is sort of charcoal. Okay, you put charcoal in your barbecue, you put an electric source, it'll consume. It should have been all ashes if it was consumed, but it was not. So once I clued into this, I said, oh, and then we had discussion with the technical guys, and we got to understand this is where this press release evolved to try to convey to investors presence and future. that the innovation that was behind, the innovation we've been talking about, repeating ad nauseum, okay? All what was considered FUD before is now real, works, exists. No, fluff, sorry. I said FUD, but it was fluff. You know, people accuse us of doing fluff. This is all real. All of this led to this point.
Well, remember, I think most shareholders actually believe, but yeah, you did have the critics out there, that's for sure, right?
Oh no, but there's always critic, but and in a long process like what we're doing, okay, you know, when there is what looks to be a long process, there's always room to criticize. But for us, we always knew we would get there. It was just like, oh, we got here. I think it was more like, oh, wait a minute, we made it.
I want to bring in,
I'm gonna be very honest. I think it was the same reaction at Pyro and at us. It was like, because we've been like so focused on when we're putting stuff in the machine, when we're putting stuff in the machine, when we're putting stuff in the machine. That's the only question we were asking the technical guys, and they had to deal with us human beings. Says we put stuff in the machine. They knew they had to do this test, and they delivered on this test like AAA, like professional, really out of the ballpark. And that speaks miles about the Pyrogenesis technical ability.
and hold on, I'm going to mute there for a second. Sorry, I got, the hurdles of working at home. I want to bring in the words of Peter Pascali, because he's not with us in this interview, but he said, advancing the PureVap project to this stage has been one of the greatest achievements of the company. Speaking of Pyrogenesis, this is a company who has put plasma torches on U.S. Aircraft carriers and has signed multi-million-dollar deals with some of the biggest companies in the world. And then he goes on to say, we firmly believe the PureVap process will prove to be a game changer in the production of a metal as strategically important to future energy goals as silicon. I mean, what does it say to hear that from Peter? Because we've said this before, Peter doesn't have to lay his reputation on the line. He's not a one-trick pony. He's got so many other products and successful commercialization pipeline. But for him to say it's one of the greatest achievements of his company, does that really puts it into perspective?
You know, I've been teasing Peter lately. He says, you know, let's get the PureVap going. Not that they were not working on it. I was trying to find ways. Is there any way for us to cut corners and speed it up? And you know, there was no way. You can't cut corner when you're doing what we're doing. But I kept saying is once this machine will be up and operational, okay, it's going to be a showcase, a showpiece equipment to show their expertise and HPQ's vision. Reality is HPQ came to Pyro with a problem, okay? How do we add value to our quartz? And they came up with this solution. And in a partnership, we financed the development and we got it here, which is another tremendous achievement, which I pull my hat off to our shareholders. Name me another junior company, basically another company that does such a massive change to an industrial process, been there for 100 years, using short-term financing like we did. It's not too many people that have done this. So, you know, this was, you know, if you want to put challenges in front of you, we met them all. There are still challenges going forward. I recognize this, but I think we're over the hump. Like we're really over the hump. And now it's going to be, you know, fine tuning, improving the system, starting to make the material, figuring out the cost structure moving forward. And what's interesting is the silicone industry, the SI industry has changed so much in the last 12 months because of a series of events that occurred, combined with the ESG and the green concept behind manufacturing the process. I'll talk this about more in another press release. We are in an incredibly well positioned. The time to invent a new way to make silicone was now. And it's not now that you have to start thinking about it. It's now, it's like we're not thinking about it. We've been doing this for many years and we're coming to market with that technology.
Like a lot of great technology innovations, if you achieve this milestone 3 or 4 years ago, or 3 or 4 years from now, you'd almost be off the timeline. right? Is it's fair to say that your timing is pretty, luck, look, hard work creates luck. Smart hard work creates luck, but is it safe to say that the timing's been pretty fortuitous for the company as well?
Yeah, I think it's, there's a lot of serendipity in the fact that the timing did come up this way. That's just the way it worked out. Because now the entire value chain, the entire part of what HPQ has done are becoming, valuable. This is going to be valuable in its own, the QRR process. The other value-added project we're doing, the fume silica, which is we haven't talked about, because to be very, very honest, I've been one track focus on one thing, okay? Checking off the fact that we can make high purity silicone in one step. That's been my number one focus in our communication and everything else. But that doesn't mean that we've not been doing many things in the background. It's just that's the only thing I wanted to talk about, because I wanted us to reach this goal, which where we are now. Because I don't think that people.
Where are we in the timeline now, Bernard?
We're actually pretty.
We're here. What? Talk to us about the cadence of what comes next now. Not necessarily with exact dates, right? I always try, but ballpark, what's the cadence of next steps and ballpark timelines?
Well, if you look at if you go back in the press release we issued in May, which basically meant we started like in June, what we call the 12-month period. Well, we're now almost in October, November, so we're 6 months into this. So, and that the entire testing, this was all part of the entire testing phase. Okay, now becomes the quicker part where we're starting now, the process improvement, okay, which will lead us to a stage where we'll be operating the system 24/7, making material. And then we're getting all the information, we'll start producing it, and then we'll decide the next step. When I said we're over the hump, that was it. That was the big hump, is can the system work? Can it operate within the parameters that were designed for us to attain the goal? In one of the iteration of the press release, I wanted people to realize that everything that we've done with the Gen 2, okay, which demonstrated that we should be able to make 4N in one step if we had a bigger machine, and demonstrated that we could produce 2N with material that nobody else could do, which was things that we did, were based on being able to achieve what we achieved with the test. Because that's how significant it is. In a weird way, what's left for us to demonstrate, okay, is to convert quartz into silicone, following in a certain way the same process that everybody else uses. This is why I said we're over the hump. What's left for us is, there's going to be challenges, there's going to be technicalities. I can't say it's a guaranteed event, but it looks closer. If you take a look at, I'll show the last slide that we had in the press release. If I can find the share screen button, just up two. There you go. This is what we're doing. This part of the process, okay, is standard. Okay, that's the chemical reaction. This is all the chemical reaction to make Si, all the temperature and all those process. Basically, it's like a computer, like a desktop computer versus a massive computer, only added 0 and 1, right? So the size doesn't change what happens in the computer. It's just how the process works. Well, what's going to happen within the QRR is the same thing that happens in a big reactor, in the sense of the reaction to generate the silicone. So this is why I'm sort of saying the risk going forward, we're over the hump of the big risk. What was the big milestone we needed to reach is the one we've announced today. Okay. The other ones now is just a question of tweaking it out. And we've done this with the Gen 2. Okay. So we're now back to what we were doing at the Gen 2 and tweaking it out. So for us, the risk has gone level. The massive risk was the 2,500 scaling up. Now, going forward, we're not going to do those type of crazy scaling up. Okay, we're going to be within the rule. It's when you go from and that's why Peter made his comment. What people don't realize, it's the first scaling up, okay, that is always the key, because it's the biggest one. The other ones are within the rules of concept of engineering. There's history behind those things. But the first scaling up, the one we were doing here, was the doozy, okay? 2,500 times scaling up is a doozy, okay? That is, all the risk is there. And the things we needed to validate, we didn't. That's what this press release means.
So this feels like, if I can use an analogy, it feels like the Kittyhawk moment for airplanes. And I know that you're a big, by the way, you're a big fan, you and your son, big fan of airplanes.
Mhm.
This a Kittyhawk moment because now you went from testing the plane on the ground, make sure the engines turn, everything have the turbines turn. Now what you've done is you've actually taken off, you've flown for an extended period of time,
Mhm.
and you've landed. So that is the magic
It's,
moment.
it's,
Above and
it's,
beyond
it's,
that, now what you do more with it, you go from Toronto, Montreal to Toronto, Vancouver. That's just improving the airplane's functionality. But is this a Kittyhawk moment where we got the plane to
yeah,
take off, fly, and
there's going to be,
land under control with no problems?
yeah, there's going to be multiple Kittyhawks moment, and the next one is for us to start making silicone and getting the purity down and working around. But for me, in a certain way, we're back to what we did at Gen 2, in the sense that, okay, now we understand how the system works, we can operate it, we can make it work, we can get it done. So, but it was this scaling up. Could we do this at scale? Was the $1 million question. And the answer is yes. The answer is the guys at Pyro delivered this. This is why I said eventually, I believe, somebody should get, not me, because I'm not an engineer, but somebody should get an engineering award over this, because this is
wow.
This is big. Think about this, hasn't changed the concept of making silicone. There's all this demand all over the world about, reshoring material, but people don't want to reshore the old dirty plants. They want something new. And lo and behold, we're the only offering. There's massive demands for silicone that's going to require a greenfield plant or green shield. I don't know what's the exact word, but you know what it meant.
Greenfield, yeah. So thinking like a marketer, because I think like a marketer, and I'm sure some of the shareholders think about this at home. So you've got a pretty good vision of what's going to happen next. So now your degree of confidence is extremely high. We've achieved our Kittyhawk moment. Now, you still have steps to go, but given the fact that you have a high degree of confidence in those steps and they'll be achieved moving towards commercial production, what do you start doing, or what do you start doing today in terms of marketing, PR, getting the word out, telling the world, hey guys, we had our Kittyhawk moment. So pretty soon we're going to be able to fly planes from New York to London.
Trust me, we're going to have a few other ones coming along, but I couldn't, they're not fundamentally like material and timeline, but we know where we're going with this technology and how we will tweak it to make it a very in-demand technology. So that's what's going to be happening. The truth of the matter is I was fully focused on getting this moment attained. And the next one, which is us making the stuff, and then we'll start getting the process improving. Then we start getting samples, and then we start sending in materials to get it either prepared for battery clients, for other type of applications. As I said in the Q&A, like there is interest in our ability to be able to make 4N in one step.
I think in earlier interviews in August, September, I think we said it would be great if we could get to this point by Christmas and give HPQ investors a nice Christmas present. Here we are, it's November 8th. We haven't even hit US Thanksgiving yet. So it sounds like there's more to come for the Christmas tree, Bernard, in terms of you're saying, wait to see what else we have to.
As we said in the process improvement, we're starting the process improvement, all right? And I don't know why people don't understand this. When we talk about process improvement, it means the same thing we did for the 72 hours test with now the material. But now we're going to be putting quartz in a reduction, which is charcoal. And the oxygen in the quartz will be then the fuel to make the carbothermic reaction, which I've showed the image, and will produce Si. So, then it's going to be like, how do we improve the process? So when we operate it on 24/7 continuous process, we move on. So probably do like the first run, and I'm just like speculating here. First run might be just with 1 or 2 feeding of the system while we're operating 2 cycles, we get the system, we produce enough silicon, have a pour, and then we'll keep moving by increments and try to figure out, okay, this can be improved, this can be improved. But what can I say is, if we hadn't reached what we've announced today, the rest would be impossible. But now, as I said, it's sort of like replicating what we did at the Gen 2, and we've demonstrated that we can scale it up. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, and fair to say that if this was the stress part of it all, the real stress to make sure we get the plane off the ground, will this next phase of process improvements actually be more of a fun, more enjoyable time for everybody?
It should be, but the reality is I set out, and the team at HPQ set out to demonstrate that we could change the way silicon is being made. All right. And we're on the cusp of accomplishing that goal, which is the big goal that was HPQ. Now, the next goals are going to be, how do we commercialize this? How do we move forward? How do we bring the company to the next step? But we couldn't start really working aggressively on the next part until we reached this one, which we did. So, HPQ will be no longer a PowerPoint company, but a real company. I always couldn't wait till we reach this point. So when we can bring investors to come and visit the plant, they'll get a sense of moment.
Well, until then, Bernard, congratulations, man. It's great to see the smile on your face. It's great to see the words of Peter. I'm sure we'll be speaking to him at some point pretty soon. But A, congratulations, and B, I'm sure I speak for all of the shareholders, 98.5% of them, who say, thank you. Great job to you and the whole team on the HPQ side and the whole team of the Pyrogenesis side. And can't wait. It's November the 8th, so can't wait to see what more you have for us before the end of 2022. But for today, my friend, go out, have a nice lunch, have a beer, enjoy yourself. It's beautiful weather in Canada we normally don't get in the first week of November. So, you've earned that and much, much more. Thank you, Bernard, and congratulations.
Thank you.
For everybody at home, you've been watching or you've been listening by podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform. To Bernard Tourillon, is a CEO at HPQ Silicon, trades in Canada under HPQ. For friends in the US, HPQFF. For those new to the story, and that's going to be more and more of you because of these milestones are being achieved. These are crazy milestones, and you want to know more about the company, get to the profile page on Agoracom, and then once you've done your due diligence there, hop over to the company's website and do your deep dive due diligence. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. See you next time. Hey guys, this video is over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our channel and never missing another great Agoracom small cap video.